Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the June 1st podcast. Today I'm joined by Colton Flint, Massachusetts-based storm chaser who has been storm chasing for over 10 years. Colton, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, Ethan.
So, Colton, one of the amazing things about you that always got me was how you got into storm chasing and how young you got into storm chasing. For those that don't know, do you want to elaborate on your initial experiences when it came to storm chasing?
Yeah, my very first storm chase, although it wasn't, me chasing, I was just along for the ride, was in 2011, when my parents took me on a official storm chasing tour out to the plains. And we did that for about 8, 9 years before I took over and did it myself. But yeah, I got into weather at a very young age, like we all did. My parents gave me like tornado DVDs and movies that, I got hooked on. But yeah, just like all of us, I've been interested forever. And to get out to the plains at such a young age and see, just storms out there. I didn't see my first tornado till 2013, but still, just to get a jump on it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, thinking of like just the experience alone of getting to travel in such a unique part of the country that most people don't get to see. You get to go to these real small towns and kind of, explore parts of America that not a lot of people actually get to see. And that's a beauty within storm chasing itself that I don't think a lot of people really appreciate that are outside of the hobby. I think it's really cool to, go into these small towns and kind of just see how these people live in terms of, not being able, they don't usually get like the limelight comparative to, the East Coast or the West Coast, for example, these population centers. It's really middle America and you get to see the true heart of it.
Yeah, I always found it interesting how different life is out there compared to what it is on the East Coast, where on the East Coast, it's always like go, 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 never stop. And then you go out there and it's just the complete opposite. It's very laid back, very slow. Like I remember my first time going into some of those small towns and it's just like unbelievably laid back, calm, not working all the well, they are working, but just
It's a different
lackadaisical.
kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, and they're all very nice out there compared to in Massachusetts, where most of us are jerks, to be honest. Like you don't
Yeah.
get many people holding doors open for you up here, letting you go in traffic or whatever. But it's a different lifestyle out there.
Yeah, I find that in the plains, there are so many more people that stop and say hello. Even when we're out, storm chasing, a lot of locals stop by and, ask what's up, and they're always willing to say hi and stuff like that. And you never really get that cold shoulder experience out there, whereas the Northeast, it's a completely different story.
Yeah, I've had so many locals out there ask me, like, when we're waiting at gas stations for storms, like, what are you doing? Are you a storm chaser? But they're all extremely friendly about it. We're up here, you just get stink eyes from people. And I mean, it's very rare that we get people to ask us. They're like, why do you have an anemometer on your roof?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you said that your first tornado was in 2013. Do you remember what the tornado was? Or was it
Um,
just kind of one of those, small,
as
forgettable ones?
as Hank would say, it was a saggy nipple miles away, but it was down for like 30 seconds. It was like one fourth condensed to the ground. You could just barely see the debris cloud, but it counts. And then my
Where was
second
that
one,
at?
um, I'll see if I can remember the town. I probably won't be able to. I remember it was like just barely,
General region's fine.
yeah, I was just barely over the border in Kansas from Oklahoma, um, like literally a couple miles over the border.
Nice.
But yeah, and then I saw another one a couple days later that was like a half-mile wide rain wrapped wedge on the same day as more, and that killed us that we weren't for there for more. But oh well.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been a tough one to witness, especially in such a dense population area, and actually seeing such devastation up close. One of the things Eric and I talked about last week was the fact that in an event like Moore, there's people that are seriously being affected by it. So, uh, me personally, I have yet to stumble on such a serious situation like that, obviously. But I know eventually, doing this long enough, I'll eventually have to encounter a situation like that.
Yeah. Luckily, I haven't come across anything like that in real time. We did go to see the Moore destruction a few days later.
Hmm.
Um, but in real
That must have
time,
been pretty surreal.
yeah, I mean, just some of the things you see, you just can't believe can be done. Like I remember there's poles, like metal poles that are just completely flattened and gone on the ground. Cars are upside down. Um, Concrete structures were just obliterated, or not obliterated, but very beat down, and it was just hard to fathom because obviously I'd never seen anything like that before. The worst damage I ever saw was Springfield, which was pretty bad, but not EF5.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And that's also crazy because that's the last EF5 to have happened up
Yeah,
until, yeah, I mean, there hasn't been anything since that's come close to. I mean, that's not entirely true. There's a few tornadoes that a lot of people could argue had EF5 intensity but just didn't hit anything.
yeah. I
You
mean,
know, a couple weeks later with the El Reno tornado.
yeah, that
It's
was
the perfect
EF5 for a
example.
while, right before they took it
Yeah.
back down to EF3.
Yeah, and that's the thing though. It's just the way the scale works. It just happens to be what damage surveys are, and that's how the scale is defined. I'm not sure if there's really going to be, uh, a change to the Fujita scale per se in terms of incorporating wind speeds. Maybe there will be. I'm not a NWS insider by any means, but I think there might be, maybe a secondary scale that could be utilized. Uh, who knows if that actually would take a place or if someone would even consider it, but I feel as though that the Fujita scale has been such a standard for so long that why mess with it now?
Yeah, for me personally, I'm for the most part fine with the Fujita scale. I just wish that they would like if there was a radar truck around a tornado and it got accurate wind speeds, I wish that they would allow that for their rating system because then you would
Yeah.
have like some tornadoes like Mangum that would be EF5s or closer. I just think it would
Yep.
be a more accurate depiction of tornado strength.
Were you on the Mangum tornado?
I was, but I was stuck in traffic and I never actually saw it. I was always like 10 miles behind that. That was high risk day, my first ever high risk day. That was only like my second or third chase by myself ever. I had no idea what I was getting into. Like with the chaser convergence and storms moving at 60,
Yeah.
um, and the Red River, it was not pretty, but it was a
Oh,
learning
that's true.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the 20th of May, 20th or 23rd of May,
May
2019.
20th, 2019.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that day was it was also a chase day in the Northeast. That's why I remember it. Nothing of note really happened. I just remember that being the real first chase of the season for me in
Yeah.
the in the Northeast. But it wasn't. That was also during when I first started my June 1st project, the first iteration of the June 1st project, and I left the lab early. Like I snuck out. I was supposed to stay till 4 that day, but I snuck out to go snort chasing.
Yeah. I just remember on June or not June, May 20th, the night
Hmm.
before. Well, I've done this all the time where you can't go to sleep until the new SPC outlook comes out.
Yep.
And I remember the day before, it was either already an enhanced risk or a moderate risk, probably moderate risk.
I think it was a moderate risk if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, probably. And then I remember when 2 a.m. rolled around, actually it would have been 1 a.m. out there.
Hmm.
And you just saw like because you know how with the SPC website for a while you can't click on it, but you can see the
Yep.
new outlook. I just saw a tiny little bit of pink and I flipped out. I was like, oh my God, first high risk ever. Little did I know what I was actually getting into, but you got to
Yeah.
learn sometime.
I mean, the potential that that day had it was kind of off the charts. I mean, in terms of the model runs, just 3D printing supercells essentially,
Wasn't it
and
like
I'm
15 printing supercells? Because I know there's that one like meme where it's
yeah
just like insane amount of supercells over Oklahoma.
yeah that's what I'm trying to think. What was the what happened that day that limited it?
I
There was
remember
one
there
of
was
those mechanisms that wasn't fully in place for it to fully go nuclear.
I remember a lot of junk happened at once.
Yeah,
Like tail end Charlie's kind of produced like Mangum was a tail end Charlie or close to it,
gotcha.
but there was a lot of convection that fired at once, unfortunately.
Uh, yeah, a tail end Charlie. Oh, I think I explained tail end
Yeah, I
Charlie on the
think you
last
did.
podcast.
I think I remember
Uh,
hearing that.
for those that are fresh in that don't know what a tail end Charlie storm is, it's essentially a southern end storm on a rather linear storm complex, and it usually has the best chance of producing a tornado because it has unimpeded inflow. End of story.
Right.
Um, so getting into, uh, you know, transitioning from becoming a someone that goes out on the storm chasing tours to someone that started doing their own forecasting and stuff. What would you say was the biggest learning curve in terms of trying to figure out the best way of going about storm chasing?
Um, I remember when I first started doing it myself, I watched YouTube tutorials. I mean, I kind of knew what I was doing to an extent, but there was
Mm-hmm.
certain elements of it that I didn't know what they were. So I looked it up on YouTube naturally, and I found that I mean, there's certain elements that you need to know absolutely, and then there's certain elements where they help you enhance your forecast a little bit, but you don't need to know them. So generally, I just look at the stuff that you just need to know, and I find that I have a good instinct when it comes to storms. And luckily enough, it's worked out for me so far. But maybe I've just been lucky. I don't know. But that's my philosophy. I have a very, very simple philosophy.
Yeah. Uh, I do find that you have a pretty good knack for storms, especially here in the Northeast, where storm chasing is really challenging. And last year, 2020, was quite the year for the Northeast in terms of tornadoes, particularly up in here around Massachusetts, Eastern New York, Connecticut. Uh, Now, what would you say was your favorite tornado in the Northeast that you've chased in the years that you've been doing this?
I've actually only seen uh, two, both of which were last year. And it's hard to say because one of them almost killed me, and then the other one was a lot more photogenic, but it was way farther away. But
Yeah, I want to touch on that one.
yeah,
The not the photogenic one, but the first one, which was August 2nd, 2020. If you listened to the last podcast, you heard Eric and I go through the story of us seeing the first tornado that storm produced. Well, Colton had a front row seat to one of the last tornadoes it produced, which was in, oh, was it
Sandusfield, I
Sandusfield?
believe.
Sandusfield, Massachusetts. Very small border town, right on the Massachusetts Connecticut border. You want to walk through that story and how that day unfolded for you? Because I know what happened from my perspective, but when I saw your video come out, I was like, "Holy moly, this
Well,
kid got close."
it was actually really funny because I'm lucky I even chased it all that day. Me and my dad were supposed to be golfing in southeastern Mass that day. And of course, the night before we saw it went 5%. And I was like, come on, dad, let's chase it. And he's like, no, you're not blowing off golf. I'm like, okay, but I'm not going to be happy about it. And then luckily, we got rained out around 10 a.m.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's still early. We can still haul ass and try and make it out to the 5%. I remember at the time we finished is when that cell first started popping in New York. And I was like, there's only one cell. I mean, it's easy as can be to pick what storm you're going to. So we hopped on the Mass Pike, which for people who don't know is like the quickest way east and west in Massachusetts. And we just went as fast as we could west. We dropped south and then west in Springfield, Mass. And there's really only one road that was in line where that storm was going to cross. So we
Mm-hmm.
just positioned ourselves in the path of it. And just so happened that it gained strength right as it was hitting us. And I remember, so me and my dad, we were sitting in the car at the bottom of the hill, and the view is completely surrounded by mountains. There really wasn't much of a view. And I took a picture with the radar screenshot and I was about to post it on Twitter. And then my dad says, "That's starting to look interesting." So I look up and then I see rapid left to right motion coming over the hill. And I'm like, that's a tornado. I think that's when I started recording the video. Like I started freaking out a little bit because it's coming directly at us. We saw it coming over the hill, and then the house directly in front of us in the video, the guy actually came outside. I don't know if we were on his property or something, but he's like, "What are you guys doing?" And we were trying to tell him, "There's a tornado coming, take shelter." And if I remember correctly, I didn't know what to say, so I just said, "Hide under something." And he didn't believe me. So he came outside to look for himself, which obviously you don't want to be doing when you're in the path of tornado.
Right.
But I recorded for a while. And then I remember the final straw for me to end the recording was when I started hearing trees crack. And that freaked me out because obviously I didn't know how strong it was. So we backed up and took shelter behind this metal building right next to us. And I think the tornado either lifted or it went just to our west. But I keep saying, what if I just kept recording? Because that would have been some amazing video. But
Yeah. Yeah, and that at that point though, you gotta, your instincts are telling you, you gotta act and take shelter. So you're better off doing that than becoming some sort of statistic, right? So is there footage worth your life? No. At the end of the day, no footage is worth your life. So,
well, if you can make enough money off of it, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
But would you say that it was your your close call encounter?
Oh, easily. That without a doubt, being tornadoes, straight line winds, hail, lightning is the closest I've ever come to death, I think. Maybe except one other occasion when I nearly got struck by lightning on August 29th later that year.
Yeah, so August 29th was another tornado day, and that video of you almost getting struck by lightning is pretty iconic.
Yeah.
There's a viewpoint in western Massachusetts, in the northwest corner of western Massachusetts, in North Adams, and there's a route that runs through there called Route 2, and it comes up and over a mountain, and on the downslope there is this hairpin turn that has this amazing view over North Adams, and is a great storm spot in the Northeast, especially in the Berkshires where there are not a lot of good viewing places. And Colton was utilizing that spot, and I'll let you take away the rest of the story.
Yeah, so we saw a tornado on that storm a couple hours previous, and it was almost dark, and after you get east of that spot, you're not chasing anymore because views are gone and you have no cell service. So we were making one last ditch, just trying to get lightning or whatever. So I was standing on top of a picnic table, which obviously that's not good right to start. And I had my tripod set up and I was just recording, hoping to get a lightning shot. And it started to rain, like just a light drizzle. So we were about ready to pack it in. And then there's just this massive bolt, like I don't know, probably 1/4 of a mile from us, maybe not even. And it was actually bead lightning. It was the first bead lightning I've ever seen. And of course, it was just out of frame of the video, but you can still see how bright and loud it was. And that was enough to get us all to go inside.
Yeah. That the flash and the thunder are almost instantaneous, so you can just gauge from the video and your guys' reaction just how close it was.
Yeah, we were like, okay.
Yeah, that Stillwater, New York tornado was possibly one of the nicest structure storms that I had ever seen in the Northeast. Very sculpted. I mean, maybe not by plane standards, what you normally think as sculpted storm, but definitely the best looking supercell structure that I've seen in the Northeast. And, a nice tornado underneath it before that rain really wrapped up around the base there. What was your thought process, and how do you usually kind of navigate in terms of trying to find open areas in order to get shots like that, especially here in the Northeast?
what I typically do is it's not necessarily the safest method, but I try and just watch Google Maps and see if there's any fields or anything. And if I remember correctly, when I found that spot where I saw the tornado, it wasn't actually that good looking on Google Maps, but it just so
Hmm.
happened that the spot was like extremely elevated and it dropped off quickly. So you could see forever. And within like a minute of when we got there, you could see the funnel start coming down. And I mean, everything last year just worked out. And that was just another instance of everything just working out perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that your Northeast 2020 season made up for the lack of, action in the 2020 Plains season. 2020 was a notoriously poor season in terms of seeing photogenic tornadoes. However, there were a lot of linear storms that year and a lot of shelf clouds and stuff like that. Uh, During the your planes chasing that year, did you have any memorable experiences during that 2020 outing?
Yeah, 2020 structure wise was actually a
Mm.
fantastic year. And just to name a few examples, I'll probably forget the town names, but I think it was May 23rd with Syracuse or Ulysses or whatever that storm was.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
That did not produce a tornado, but obviously structure was top notch. And then a few days later, Burke Burnett, which did produce
Yep.
a couple saggy nipple things miles away, as Hank would say. But again, structure and lightning was phenomenal. But yeah, officially, I did see a couple tornadoes out in the plains, but it was a structure year for the most part, which I'm fine with because you just don't see that up in the Northeast.
Yeah, that's true. Talking about structure, do you want to talk about Earth, or was it Sudan,
I think it's
or is
both.
it both?
It's whatever I call it Earth because
Yeah.
I was on the southern
Okay.
side and Sudan was the northern side, I think. But yeah,
Or probably west. Yeah.
yeah,
Depends which side you were looking at it. Yeah. Would you say is that the best structure you've seen in terms of supercells?
I would think so. It's if it's not, it's very close. I would have to think.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it produced a tornado and that structure, definitely probably best storm I've ever seen.
Yeah. In the moment, were you like awestruck? Do you think like that moment right there just made the trip?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if it didn't even have the structure, just the photogenic, fully condensed tornado would have done it for me. But then to have that structure with a no precip supercell, I mean, there was no rain at all on that storm. It was just
Yeah, that's
amazing.
amazing.
And to have my drone up there and everything rolling, and that storm was moving like 8 miles per hour, just perfect.
Yeah, that thing was crawling.
Yeah.
I remember because we were driving down that night, and I remember like seeing all the photos coming out of it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I left yesterday so I could have chased that day."
Yeah.
So that was a tough one to miss. And then the day we left the plains was the uh, what was it? That was the day that everyone was mistargeted. Well, not that they mistargeted, but the northern stuff decided to be the fun stuff, whereas the southern stuff fell flat. That was the 26th, I believe. Whichever day that was along the Kansas-Nebraska border there. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the one that everyone was upset about because most people missed it. But for those that don't know, 2021 was my first planes experience, and we were out there for a week and a half, and I was just kind of getting my feet wet at it. But as mentioned previously, Colton has been doing this since 2011, and in 2011, if I'm not mistaken, you got to meet one of the one of my main inspirations for my career path and my storm chasing ventures. Uh, do you want to talk about this run-in that you had back in 2011, Colton?
Yeah. 2011, May 2nd or 3rd, I think it was. It doesn't matter. But we were in or not Nebraska, South Dakota, and we were waiting for storms for hours. And my family and I, we got bored, so we decided to walk across the street to this. It was like a gas station and diner hybrid. And the way the store was set up is whether you're going to the gas station or the diner, you have to go in through one door. And then once you enter, you either go right for the gas station or left for the diner. And we went to the gas station, and I happened to look in the door for the diner, and Tim Samaris's entire crew was eating in there. And I didn't want to bother them for two reasons. One, I was shy, and two, they're
Mm-hmm.
eating. So it just, I wouldn't want anyone bothering me while I'm eating. So I'm not
Right.
going to bother them. So then we did what we had to do at the gas station, and we walked back across the street. And I told my mom, because obviously Storm Chasers was on at the time. I
Yep.
said, Tim Samaras is in there. She didn't believe me. Um, then a few minutes went by and we went back over there. I can't remember why, but it so happened that they were walking out at the time that we went back. And I didn't want to say anything because I was extremely shy. And my mom like forcefully made me say something to him or meet him. And if I remember, I didn't say anything because what's an 11-year-old going to say to someone like that? I just said,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. Can I get a picture? So I got a picture with all of them, and they're extremely nice, especially Tim. He was so nice, and he offered to take multiple pictures to make sure they were good. And that was that. But I mean, that was amazing to get beforehand, and especially since he died a couple years later, just look back on it and so fortunate you got to meet him.
Yeah. That's an incredible just like the stars that had to align for that kind of encounter to happen. And it's funny that you mentioned that you were shy because I know me in that moment, I would have like completely like shut down because I wouldn't know how to approach the situation. And I was naturally kind of an introverted kid as well. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't have known what to do. So I guess you got to thank your mom for kind of, kind of
forcing me
making
into the
you. Yeah.
situation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but that's awesome that you're gonna have like this memory and this picture to kind of cherish for years to come. I mean, because once you have the storm bug, like it's not going away. So um, it's amazing that you get to have such a what's the word I'm looking for? I guess memorable kind of experience and uh, a special moment uh, with someone that is so prominent in the community.
yeah. And like I said, I mean, it was amazing before he died, but then to, be able to say that you met him after he died, it's sad, but I'm glad to have been able to meet him and say that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. So shifting gears a bit, Colton, what would you say is your number one storm chasing experience? It doesn't have to be the best tornado or the best structure, but maybe just your favorite well executed storm chase or just favorite road moment from all the years that you've been storm chasing.
Oh, that's a tough one. Off the top of my head, I'm probably gonna have to say it's probably August 2nd, just for the simple reason of just seeing a tornado in Massachusetts. Because I I thought it would take me like a decade to see that because they don't happen often. They're usually quick,
Mm-hmm.
not photogenic, and just your actual odds of seeing it are going to be close to zero.
Yep.
And oh wait, no, I forgot about a day. May 17th, 2019 was my first ever storm chase alone in the plains. We landed into Oklahoma City at like 9, 10, 11 a.m. That day was the enhanced risk day where McCook happened, but we
Yep.
were in Oklahoma City. No way we could make it to Nebraska. So there was a secondary target kind of in the Oklahoma panhandle, obviously much, much lower chance. It was barely even in a 2%. I think I remember it was extremely capped, but if something could break through, it would be in a great environment. And we waited out there for like 4 hours. Nothing happened. And then finally around 6:30, I think it was, the cap broke and it went from like no storm at all to tornado on the ground in like 30 minutes or something. And that was my first real tornado in the plains, like, photogenic, fully condensed. And to have that on my very first chase by myself ever, and then it produced two or three more tornadoes afterwards. So almost the perfect scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Just this is like your first your legit first, point mission chase. You're calling the shots and it actually, works out the way that you want it to and ends in possibly the best result possible. I can't think of, a better first chase possibly. My first actual storm chase was July 2nd, 2016. I hope that I have that day right. I was looking at it not too long ago because I think it was Eric actually that did one of those tweets where you like quote tweet it and put your version of whatever, and it was like your first chase versus your most recent chase. So I had to go back and found my iPhone 6 or whatever I was using at the time and went back in my camera roll to find my first like storm pictures from when I went like hit the road chasing, and it was July 2nd, 2016. And then I went back to the SPC archive to see what the setup was and all that and like what the SPC had. And it was an enhanced day and I didn't even realize it. I don't think I really saw anything because I hadn't figured out that satellite maps is the best way to finding viewing spots, because I pretty much I think I was just looking at like radar scope and was just like, all right, the storm's that way, I'm just going to drive that way. And I pretty much just drive straight into the storm and get hit by, like pea-size hail and wind, and that's the chase. So I was doing that for a while, and it wasn't until about 2018 that I really started figuring out how to do this whole northeast chasing thing. So yeah, talk about having a first chase where, it works out so in your favor. 2019 was an incredible year for severe weather in the plains. If I'm not mistaken, it was just like back to back to back to back to back days. It was like no days off.
There's like a 3-week period where I think the stat was that there was at least 8 tornadoes recorded on every single day for 3 weeks in a row or something absurd. There was like 600 tornadoes in 3 weeks or something, some insane stat like that.
That's incredible. Wow. It's like since 2020 and 2021, it's hard to imagine, a scenario like that nowadays, with 2 years that have kind of flopped tornado wise. I mean, 2021 less so than 2020, but I think it was definitely hyped up more than what it ended up cracking out to be. I think all the setups just were kind of lacking the extra ingredients needed to make him good tornado days. Because like every day here and there, it's like, there'd be a supercell and it would just kind of meander and it didn't really do the whole tornado thing. Because when I was out there, it's like all the supercells that I saw struggled to really, produce, a significant tornado for any length of time. I saw 2 tornadoes that like confirmed while I was out there, and both of which were kind of noodly funnels. The Akron, Colorado day, which was May 22nd, was definitely the better of the two. But unfortunately, I was like swapping lenses to like get a good picture of it. And in the shuffle of lenses, it was already roping out, so I couldn't get a picture of it. So
that's what I did on your first tornado day. Which day was it in Texas this year when you saw
the La Mesa day? That was May 18th.
Yeah, I remember I had my wide angle lens on my camera and I was just trying to get lightning. And then all of a sudden this absolutely tiny, the tiniest funnel I think I've ever seen came down. And
Yeah, it was an absolute needle.
I was trying to switch my lenses out and my camera was fighting back. It wouldn't let me take my wide angle lens out. So I have this wicked zoomed out shot that I had to zoom in and it's insanely blurry, but
Yeah. Yeah, that was the same. Well, we were on the move when it touched down. So I was shooting out my window and then I went back to look at all the photos and they were just all out of focus and I was just like that's you know, of course my luck. The two tornadoes I see out in the plains, I don't have like a good photo to like show for it.
yeah,
So it's whatever. But it was fun just to be out there and kind of getting to have like that chasecation experience of driving around. And I mean the La Mesa day in particular, it was just like everyone was leapfrogging and just these chaser convoys, and it wasn't like huge chaser convergence that was like slowing people down. But it was just cool to be out there and kind of experiencing this thing with everyone else that all loves the same thing. And the amount of big names that I saw out that day was insane. Like I think I saw like every big name chaser out there that day. And it was cool just to be like alongside all these people that I've grown up admiring. Um, it was that was a fun day. And the storm in general was just a great supercell that lasted for a long time. So
and
what more can you ask for?
on a low end too. I remember, I think it was the 2%, and that storm wasn't even really in the 2% area, and it was just
Yep.
alone for the entire time.
Yeah. And it just kind of meandered along, took its time. Uh, Dumping hail though, that
Yeah,
was for sure. There were a couple times we let the hail core get pretty close to us because we were just kind of the way we were positioning that entire time. We were just sitting in the notch, just kind of in between the hail core and the main updraft base. And I got a lot of cool shots. And then by the end of the day, golden hour came around, and I got some wicked shots of that supercell going into sunset territory. And man, that was just I think that was possibly the most fun chase of the trip for myself. Um, I'm trying to think if there was any other standout moments. The Akron tornado one was pretty cool, but you know, it's true about what they say about the Texas Panhandle. It is really kind of a magic spot in terms of storm chasing.
yeah. I mean, it's obviously flat as can be. Roads are pretty good there, and it just seems like generally you got good luck with storms out there for the most part, especially this
Hmm.
year.
Yeah. On your second trip, so uh, how often have you been going like the two separate weeks, or has this been a new addition to your chasecation style?
This was my third year doing it, where
Okay.
the whole thing actually evolved. So I started in 2019, and that second trip was going to be a graduation gift to myself
Hmm.
from graduating high school. And that first trip in May was the first one that I did myself because we broke off from the tour company we'd been doing for years because they had things going on. So we weren't supposed to be doing that one ourselves, but we just said, why not wing it? And so we just wung it or wung it, wing it. I don't know what the word is, but we did it ourselves and it worked out great. And
Yeah.
then we did the graduation trip by ourselves and it also worked out great, although it was a quiet week, but we did it. It worked out. So ever since then, we've just been doing 2 years. Why not maximize how many opportunities you can get? And I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, I feel like that's a good way to approach it too, because if you have like say a solid one long chasecation, um, you run the risk of there just not being like a synoptic deep trough running it all. Whereas if you break it up, you could have a situation where you're kind of spreading yourself out and giving yourself the opportunity to actually get a trough ejection at least one of those times. It's kind of like spreading, I guess, your raffle tickets out or whatever instead of just putting them all in one basket. So that's a I was thinking about doing that for next year, but I think it's going to be too much of a hassle since we bring our own car out there. So I think we're just going to have to, just do a straight 2 weeks uh, out there,
Yeah.
which I'm fine with. I'm pretty confident that at least some of the time there will be enough of a trough in place to, capitalize on.
Well, it's pretty hard, like in peak season in Tornado Alley, even if you have the worst pattern, you typically still get storms. It's pretty hard to not have storms at all in peak season. So I'm sure you'll get
Yeah.
something. And that's just worst
Yeah,
case scenario.
exactly. I think too I feel like the less synoptically, evident setups are sometimes the best setups. I mean, the La Mesa Day is the perfect example. It's like, not even in the main event area for that day. I mean, I mean, I think out east in East Texas there was a higher risk, but it was all like tropical garbage or something. Like I don't even remember what the actual setup was, but it was like non-dry line, just MCS kind of deal, which I know I don't want to deal with. So
No, and chasing
uh,
terrain's awful once you get like east of Dallas or whatever.
yeah, yep, yeah. It starts turning into the jungle once you go east of that I-35 corridor. So I was very happy with that La Mesa setup and that La Mesa storm. Um,
I actually remember on that La Mesa day, there was like two targets in that general area. There was like the La Mesa target, and then there was like a New Mexico target, which a lot of
yep,
chasers chose first. And I was scared because I remember, I think I remember Jeff Petrowski and Daniel Shaw, maybe, but I know Petrowski, they started in New Mexico. And I mean, I have confidence in my own forecasts and I don't rely on what other chasers do. But sometimes I can't help getting nervous when I see big names going other places. And when I
yeah,
saw them going out there, I'm almost like, am I making a wrong call? But then I saw that
yeah,
isolated supercell by La Mesa, and I'm like, I can't go to New Mexico. It looks like garbage out there. And then to see all those New Mexico chasers come to your storm, it's like the best feeling.
yeah. It's crazy that they were managed to go all the way from the Texas New Mexico border all the way down to you know essentially Midland, Texas, to catch this storm,
Yeah, we
which is
probably we probably
not
don't
a
want to know how
short
fast they
drive.
were going.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna ask any questions.
No,
Yeah, because there were a bunch of people on that New Mexico, like you said, and I think the remembering the setup. I'm trying to remember what was at play, but I felt like La Mesa, or what ultimately ended up being the La Mesa storm, was uh, the more prevalent one in my very uneducated opinion compared to some. But while I was out there, I think I ran into Skip, Hank, and the Simon crew uh, probably 5 or 6 times while I was out there. So seeing them on the storms that I was on and at the gas stations waiting for initiation and stuff was uh, always fulfilling to see. It's like, all right, like you said, I'm confident. I got to be confident in my own forecasting ability, but seeing people like that out there, it gives you like that affirmation of like, okay, they're here, so I should be here.
reassurance that you're making the right call, or at least
Yeah,
you think you're making the
exactly.
right call.
And one of the things that gets me a lot of the time, seeing these chasers that are out there, like the big name chasers, like, Reed, Hank, Skip, Daniel Shaw, name whoever you want, big name chaser. I wonder how irritating it is for them when people start following them, because I know it happens with Reed all the time. And Reed, I know he's an amazing guy and he loves talking to people, but I imagine at some point it must get somewhat irritating having people tailing you wherever you're going on a storm, especially when you're someone who's like Reed, who's a very aggressive chaser. Uh, it's not exactly the best move, having all these people just kind of following you, trying to get their best view of the storm, essentially. I always wondered how uh, those high profile chasers, handle that, because when I was it was the 10% day in Colorado, which was the 23rd. It was the day after I saw the Akron tornado. I saw Hank and all of them at the same gas station I was at, and Hank was parked behind the gas station. So I was parked like way off to the side because I was just kind of watching the towers build and stuff. But from where everyone else mostly was, like, they couldn't see that Hank was there, and he was literally behind the gas station, almost like hiding away from everyone, so he wasn't like being approached. So I always wondered how higher profile chasers kind of handle that kind of notoriety out there.
Yeah, that's always that's part of the reason why I really don't talk to any chasers out there, well, bigger name chasers, because like you mentioned, I'm sure that they're like, oh, here comes another guy asking for an autograph or a picture. I mean, maybe they don't mind, but a lot of times I just try and think of if I were in their shoes, would I want someone bothering me right now?
Yeah.
And most of the time, the answer is no. Like, if they're trying to forecast, would I want someone to bother me? No. If
Yep.
I'm talking to someone, or the list goes on, and I just let them have their own space. And unfortunately, a lot of chasers don't. They kind of budge in, but it's everyone's
Yeah.
own thing.
Yeah. I feel like it's different when it's like, say it's post chase, or the event's wrapping up for the day, like that. Okay, that's a little more acceptable. But if we're like, initiation's happening and you're trying to pick a storm and it's like heat in the moment, you know, the storm chase is like unfolding as we speak, I feel like that's like the most inappropriate time to, go talk to these chasers that you look up to. Wait until after the event at the hotel or something, you happen to see them out. Yes, it's cool that you're seeing them out there right then and there in their element, but you kind of have to let them do their thing so they can keep doing the thing that they do best, essentially.
Yeah, and it's
You
even
kind of have to let them do their work process or whatever uninterrupted. It's like interrupting an artist or something.
yeah, it's even more important for them because a lot of those bigger name chasers, that pretty much is their job or something
Oh
close to
yeah,
it. Where us, it's just
exactly.
recreational. So I wouldn't want to bother them.
Yeah, yeah. So I think personally for me, uh, I like I said, I saw all these big name chasers out there when they were out there doing it, but uh, like you said, if I were in their shoes, I know I wouldn't want people kind of encroaching on my space. Um, if there are any big name chasers out there that are listening to this right now, uh, I'd love to have you on the podcast first and foremost, but I'd also love to get your understanding, and maybe we can start vocalizing this idea of, letting people when they're in their element, getting ready. It's like trying to compare it. What's something I can compare it to? Um, like, talking to, I don't know, like talking to a pitcher in the dugout in between innings, or um, for my example, me being a hockey goalie, I was always just in my zone in between periods, and all the players know that when your goalie's hot and he's in the zone, you don't talk to him, you don't even look at him in the locker room between periods. You just kind of, you know, let him do his thing, and it's the same deal. You watch like Tom Brady going out to the field. He's not really interacting with fans. He's laser focused, and it's the same way with chasing. You're not signing autographs and stuff when you're about to go intercept a tornado, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Where I mean, there's just so many examples of that in sports and chasing where if someone's locked in, you don't mess with them, and
Yeah,
you just let them do their thing. And like you said it perfectly, before the chase and after the chase is when you can talk to them, unless they're doing something. But
yeah,
during the chase,
like eating
leave them alone. Yeah,
at a diner, gas
At
station,
Applebee's.
or at Applebee's.
Yeah, that's the chaser hub, I guess.
Yeah, it's really funny. There was a bus day That was the day after you left. I think it was the 21st of May this year, and we were all at Applebee's, I guess drinking our sorrows from the day or whatever. And like the whole Applebee, I would say probably 70% of that Applebee's was Storm Chasers in Sidney, Nebraska. And we see this RAV4 with these cameras and mezzanette kind of style thing on top, and sure enough, it's Daniel Shaw. And Aaron Rigsby goes, everyone, when Daniel Shaw gets in here, we all got to go, is that the Daniel Shaw? And he walks in, and then the entire restaurant, is that the Daniel Shaw? And that was like a really cool moment just to see like a very notable chaser kind of just outside of like that storm element that we were talking about earlier, and kind of getting to unwind. And it was really cool getting to talk to Daniel Shaw a little bit. I'm still not even really sure why Applebee's is the premier storm chaser hangout spot. I think it's just kind of the meme at this point that we keep going back there.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I'm actually not really a fan of Applebee's, and I'm kind of confused as to why chasers like it, but it's probably more for the meme value, like you said. Actually, also, because I think I remember Chaser saying that that's usually the only place that's still open after Chase is finished.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. I was thinking about the best post-Chase dinner that I had out there was on May 22nd, which is my brother's birthday, the Akron, Colorado day. And we go to this steakhouse in Fort Morgan. It was like on the outskirts of Fort Morgan, Colorado. And this steakhouse was attached to a gas station. Like the restaurant itself was attached to the gas station. And we went in, we all sat down, we're all at kind of different tables just because the way the place is set up, they don't have like, it's all like booths. So it's not like you can really like pull tables out and stuff. So we're all at our individual booths, and they hand out the menus, and there's literally 5 items on the menu, and it's just different cuts of steak. Like that's all. And it's just like, and the steak comes with a salad and a baked potato. That's what you're getting. That's what you're going to like. So that's what we had steak, we had a mashed potato and salad. And then we got to sing happy birthday to my brother. They had like one cake option that you could pick from. But we got all the storm chasers in the restaurant to sing happy birthday to my brother. And I get to say that I got a tornado for my brother's birthday. So what better present that you can get than a photogenic elephant trunk tornado?
Yeah, there you go. That's a win-win situation for all parties.
Heck yeah. And on that note, we're closing in on an hour here. Colton, do you have any socials that you want to plug?
Sure. You can follow me on Twitter at TornadoF123. It's all one word, and the T is capital. You can't mistake the profile. You'll see that the profile pictures is me standing in front of a storm, but that's basically all I have for storms. So if you want to follow me there, that would be appreciated.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, man, for coming on, and I'm sure I'll have you back in the not too distant future, hopefully talking about some more storms down the pipe, especially now that we got this late season setup coming up. Too bad I don't think you're going to be out there, and I know I won't be out there.
No.
But I mean, I thought about it.
Yeah, I did too.
I was about to take vacation days.
I can't sensibilize doing it, or whatever the word is. It's a little too extreme.
Rational, yeah.
Yep.
Justify it.
Yeah.
That's the word you're looking for.
But there will be more chases. Oh, well.
Exactly. That's the motto. There will always be more storms.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Colton, for joining. And everyone, thank you for listening to the June 1st podcast.